Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Addie, and today we are reviewing every single book that I read in 2024 in a couple sentences or less. So let's go over some stats. In 2024, I read a total of 91 books. I read 39,028 pages. My shortest book was The 11th Metal by Brandon Sanderson, which was 21 pages, and my longest book was Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson, which was 1,088 pages. My average book length was 428 pages. My most shelved book was Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, and my least shelved book was My December Darling by Lauren Asher. And my average rating was 3.9 stars. So the first book I read was Throne of the Fallen by Kerri Maniscalco. Absolutely love this book and really got me into the Kingdom of the Wicked whole world. I adore this world, and I rated this 4 stars. The next book I read was Ruthless Vows. I rated this 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this, and I thought it was a good ending to Divine Rivals. And then I read The First Mistborn, The Final Empire. I rated this 5 stars. This was my entrance into the Cosmere, and I have never looked back since this book. My next book was Homebody by Ruby Kaur. This is just a little poetry book. I didn't give this a rating. I don't remember much about it, but I do like her poetry books though. Next, I read The 11th Metal by Brandon Sanderson, and this was just a little novella between the first and second Mistborn trilogy books. It was just a 20-page short story. Next, I read The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson, which is the second Mistborn book in the trilogy, and this one was definitely my least favorite of the trilogies, but I still thought it was good. I rated it 3 stars. Then I read Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. I was so pleasantly surprised by this, and it put me in a huge chess phase. I want more YA from her, and I rated this 4 stars. Next, I read The Hero of the Ages by Brandon Sanderson, which is the last book in the Mistborn trilogy, and I rated this 5 stars. A very easy 5 stars. Was a incredible ending to this trilogy. It was perfect. And then I read House of Flame and Shadow. I rated this 4 stars. That might have been being kind of generous though. I think I would change that to a 3.5 star rating just because it definitely did not live up to the expectations that the promotion led me to believe. And it had so much potential, but I don't think it lived up to it. Then I read Ace of Shades by Amanda Foody. This was a DNF of the year. I just couldn't get into it, but it wasn't bad. I just couldn't connect with it at all. And then I read Magnolia Parks Into the Dark, and this was the last installment of the Magnolia Parks story. There's still gonna be more in the Magnolia Parks universe, but this was the last of her and BJ story, and I rated this 5 stars. I honestly didn't really love them until this book, but I saw so much growth in the characters, and I just thought this was so beautifully written, and I loved it. And then I read Bride by Ali Hazelwood, and I rated this 3 stars. I had fun with it, but I was definitely a little weirded out. It was a little strange. It was my first step into the Omegaverse, and I just don't think it's for me. And then I read Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. I rated this 4 stars. I definitely think this is one of his most underrated books. I really, really loved this story, and I don't hear anyone talking about it. One of his standalones, and I thought this was a really incredible world that he built in one book. And then I read Hopeless by Elsie Silver, which is the 5th and final book in the Chestnut Spring series, and I rated this 4 stars. I absolutely loved this book, but I just didn't like it as much as Flawless and Powerless, but it was still fabulous. I love everything that Elsie Silver puts out. And then I read Butcher and Blackbird by Brynne Weaver. I rated this 3 stars. It's like a serial killer romance rom-com. It was honestly so much fun. I just don't know if these are my style of books, but I definitely could appreciate that I had fun reading them. And then I read Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, which I obviously rated 5 stars. This is one of my favorite books that I've read this year. I've never loved characters as much as I love the characters in Emily Wilde. And then I read Redeeming Six by Chloe Walsh. I did not care for this at all. I don't like Joey and Effe's books at all, really, which I know is kind of an unpopular opinion. I just did not enjoy this book. There's so many things that just bugged me in here. But then I read Final Girls by Riley Sager, and I really liked this one. It was quick, but really nothing that special about it. Definitely not one of my favorites of his books, but it was good for a quick thriller read. And then I read The Hope of Elantris, which is kind of like the Elantris novella. I rated 3 stars. I don't remember anything about it, but I remember being oh, that was fun, you know? And then I read Renegades by Marissa Meyer. I also rated this 3 stars, probably more of a 2.5. I just didn't love it. I'm not huge on like superheroes. That's never really been my thing. I'm not like into Marvel or anything like that, and like so a book centering around superheroes, I just couldn't bring myself to care, and when I bought the second book, I just never wanted to read it, so not my favorite. And then I read The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I rated this 4.75 stars. The only reason I didn't rate it 5 is because I did not like it quite as much as I liked Circe, and Circe was a clear 5-star read for me. But the writing was beautiful, some of the most beautiful writing I've ever read, and Madeline Miller just kills it every single time with the most beautiful writing. But then I read The Emperor's Soul, and I rated this 4 stars. This was kind of his longer of his like novellas. It was very well built for being like 200 pages. It was great. And then I read Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands, which I rated 5 stars. Obviously, this is one of my top books of the year. I love this so much. It completely like was a shift in my reading taste. It was so much fun. And then I read A Curious Beginning by Diana Rayburn. This was my introduction to Veronica Speedwell, and I have adored those books, reading those books this year. And I'm just obsessed with Veronica and Stoker and whatever shenanigans they get into. It's so much, and solving mysteries. It's so much fun. The next book I read was Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I rated this 5 stars. I just remember reading this at a time when I like really needed something like fun, and I just really needed something that would like make me happy, and that's exactly what this book did. The writing was amazing. Their relationship was just built so beautifully, and it was just great. And then I read Long Shadow by Olivia Atwater. This is the 3rd book in the Regency Fairy Tales series, and definitely my least favorite of them. I loved Half a Soul. I can't even remember the second one's name, but Long Shadow was like just okay for me, but I still had fun. I liked the characters. And then I read In the Weeds by P.K. Borison. This is the 2nd book in the Lovelight Farms series, and I loved Lovelight Farms. This one was just alright to me, but I still had a really fun time, and I'm gonna definitely continue the series because I just love like the Christmas tree farm like aesthetic that they all live on. Also, if you want a book that really closely resembles like the Gilmore Girls, like Stars Hollow world, this is definitely for you. And then I read Ink Blood Sister Scribe by Emma Torts. I really loved this book. It was like a book about magical books, which I'm always gonna eat up. And then I read Funny Story by Emily Henry. I adored this book so much. Their love story was so perfect. The banter in this book was perfect. I love myself a fake dating trope. And then I read A Perilous Undertaking, which is the 2nd book in the Veronica Speedwell series, and I also rated this 4 stars. I remember just really loving the mystery in this, and it was another murder mystery, and I just had so much fun with this one. And then I read The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. I rated this 4 stars, and it is because the beginning, I understand that he was building something. I understand that, but I just felt like it dragged the first like 600 pages of the book. It was so hard for me to get through them, but it was definitely worth it at the end, but I just couldn't ignore those first 600 pages. However, still love the Storyblade Archives. He created such an amazing world. I loved this book nonetheless. And then I read Powerful by Lauren Roberts. I actually really liked this book. I thought this was a really solid novella, and I really liked learning about another character that we saw in Powerless. Yeah, this is a very solid novella. I really enjoyed it. And then I read Lovely War by Julie Berry. I rated this easy 5 stars. Beautifully written love story, beautiful writing, really creative idea for a book that I've never read anything like it. I highly recommend this one. Like, it's 2 love stories told by Aphrodite during World War I. I love, like, how does her mind work? But it just, everything the way, it sounds insane, but the way she does it, it just works magnificently. And then I read Set on You by Amy Lee. I rated this 2 stars. I don't know, maybe I'm just not a gym girly, but like all the gym talk and fitness talk really annoyed me, to be honest. Everything about these two's relationship pissed me off, and I really don't think they should be together. And then I read Fear the Flames by Olivia Rose Darling. I rated this 4 stars. I loved this romantasy. It was really caught me by surprise. I read the indie version of this, but I know she changed stuff in the traditionally published version. I loved the dragons and the romance. It was just, if you want a fun romantasy, this was great. And then I read Wild Love by Elsie Silver. I rated this one 4 stars. I loved this book. It was the beginning of her new Rose Hill series. It had a single dad trope, brother's best friend trope. It was just, it worked. It was great. And then I read Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. I rated this 3 stars. It's a standalone YA fantasy. This one I enjoyed, but I have not thought about it since, and if you asked me a question about it, I couldn't tell you. It's not very memorable for me, but I had a good time while reading it. And then I read Guild by Raven Kennedy. I rated this 2 stars. This book was atrocious. Did I continue on with the series? Yes, but the series did get better at some points, but there were so many things like so disgustingly horrific from the main guy in this that I just had a lot of trouble like reading about. It was just so it's dark. First, if you're really big into like dark romance and like stuff like that, it's good. But the series gets better. The first book just was not good, in my opinion. And then I read Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell, which I rated 3 stars. I really liked this thriller. Actually, probably I would rate this 3.5 stars. It was a really solid thriller. I'm picky about my thrillers, but it was really fast paced. The twist at the end really got me, and definitely want to read more Lisa Jewell books now. This one is about a mom whose daughter goes missing, and then she starts dating a guy, and his daughter looks suspiciously like her daughter that went missing. And then I read The Graham Effect by Elle Kennedy. This one really shocked me. I did not think I was gonna like this as much as I would, because I loved The Deal. It's her spin-off of The Deal series that she wrote, and I adored The Deal, and I adored like all those books, but like all her other books since then have like really fell flat for me, so I wasn't expecting too much out of this, but this one was so good. It gave me the same feelings as I got when I read The Deal. I feel like she's found her niche. Like, she just needs to stick to the hockey romances. And then I read The Dixon Rule by Elle Kennedy, which is the second book in like that campus series spin-off, and again, this is about like Garrett Graham's daughter's best friend, and I rated this 5 stars. I like loved this book so much, and I just was not expecting to in the slightest, but it was phenomenal. I was kind of going out of my romance phase at this time, but this was one of the best romances I read this year. And then I read Belladonna by Adeline Grace. Gothic YA fantasy. The vibes of this book are just immaculate. Like, I just had such a good time reading this, and I loved the whole series. Yeah, the gothic vibes, if that's what you're looking for, are so perfect in this book. Then I read The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. I rated this 3 stars. Definitely not one of my favorites of hers. Liked 7 Year Slip and Novel Love Story better, but the whole concept of it was really interesting. Like, falling in love with a ghost, like, it was so unique. And I love when I find a book that like I've never read anything like it before. And then I read A Treacherous Curse by Dana Raybourn. I rated this 3 stars only because I don't think I was as invested in the mystery that they were solving. It wasn't really like a murder mystery or like anything like that, and I just tend to like those more. And then I read The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. I rated this 5 stars. This is one of those books I feel like everyone should read like once in their life. It's such an amazing read. And then I read The Viscount Who Loved Me. I rated this book 2 stars. So the second I started, I just wanted to be over. I really did not like the first Bridgerton, and I was like, okay, I'll give I just want to give it another chance, and I just don't think this series is for me. I just don't love the romance. I don't love how the romances are written. And then I read Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. I rated this 5 stars. Beautiful writing, outstanding characters, and amazing fantasy premise. Like, it just had the whole package. And then I read Leather and Lark by Brynne Weaver. This is another 2 stars. I like the first one in the series, Butcher and Blackbird, because it entertained me. I still didn't love like the serial killer romance kind of vibe, but it was entertaining, so I had fun. But this one had like, I just wasn't entertained, so I'm like, I don't like really care about the romance, and I'm not entertained, so I don't think I'm gonna continue on with the series. And then I read Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. I rated this 5 stars. I thought this was by far his best standalone fantasy book. It was phenomenal and definitely a must-read between Way of Kings and Words of Radiance. I felt like I got so many like little Easter eggs into it, and I loved it. I thought like this one kind of centers around a fantasy world that like revolves around like colors and light, and I thought that was so interesting. And it definitely plays into Words of Radiance. And then I read Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor. This was also 5 stars. I just adore the Strange the Dreamer duology, and I have no notes for it. It had the same writing, same characters, same perfect premise, a really phenomenal ending to the story. And then I read Love Unwritten by Lauren Asher. I rated this 4.75 stars. This was almost a 5 star. I just felt like it was a little long. It's still a phenomenal romance. I remember getting this signed and I was so excited about it, and it definitely lived up to my expectations. And then I read Glint by Raven Kennedy. I rated this 3.75 stars. I decided to continue on with the series because I heard it gets better, and the second book definitely was way better than the first, and I could see the character development. I could see the shift in like the problems I had with the first one. I really liked the premise of like a King Midas retelling, and I thought it was going very well. And I just ended up really liking the shift the author took with this series. And then I read Shadows for Silence in the Forests of Hell by Brandon Sanderson. This is a like very little short story, probably around 50 pages. I really liked this book. I just remember thinking like I wanted a novel out of it. It was only 50 pages and I'm like, I could have gone for more. It was definitely darker than anything I'd read by him, and I really liked that vibe. I rated this 4 stars. And then I read Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. I rated this 4.25 stars. This was a great thriller by him. I was like, this is what I expect with Riley Sager. My only issue with it, the ending fell so flat for me. You kind of got to the ending after like this whole book of like hype and build up, and you're just like, oh, like that's it? Like that's what happened? Like I don't know. And then I read Pet Sematary by Stephen King. I rated this 4 stars. I really liked this book. I thought the premise was so interesting. Basically, this man moves into this house and they find out that a lot of pets tend to die on the road in front of them, like front of the house, so there's like a pet cemetery in the woods, but the pet cemetery is a little bit more sinister than they think, and very interesting. And I'm glad I started with this to start as an introduction for Stephen King, because it's not too long, so I definitely want to keep reading more of his books. And then I read The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. I rated this 4 stars. I just got the like picture book version of it from my library, and I just had so much fun with it. I love this story in general. Like I remember liking it as a kid, and now I just kind of wanted to like relive that for like Summerween, and that was just a lot of fun. And then I read A Guest in the House by Emily Carroll. This I rated 4 stars. This was a graphic novel. I don't read a ton of graphic novels, but I kind of wanted to try one, and I'm really glad I did with this. The illustrations in here were stunning. They were beautiful, and yeah, I just thought it was great. It's about this woman who marries this man whose wife died, and then she starts getting haunted by the wife who died, and she starts to wonder if maybe she didn't die from like natural circumstances. And then I read Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. I rated this 5 stars. This was kind of my introduction to sci-fi horror, and I adored it. It's about killer mermaids, and this book like had me convinced that like these things exist and they are living in the sea. It was highly backed up with scientific evidence why these killer mermaids exist, and I'm like, I'm convinced. You got me. And then I read a novel love story by Ashley Poston. I rated this 5 stars. I know a lot of people weren't loving this, but like this book really did it for me, because the main character is like really pure love of books. Like I was really related to heavily in the way that she uses books to like cope through situations, and I just remember like really resonating with that. And then I read Heartless Hunter by Kristen Cicerelli. This was another 5-star read for me. I just thought this was probably the most fun I had reading a romantasy book this whole year, and it's about a witch and a witch hunter, enemies to lovers. She doesn't know that she's a witch, and he is hunting her, but he doesn't know who she is, and it's great. I have no notes. It was fun. It was a quick read, and I had a lot of fun. And then I read Reckless by Lauren Roberts. I rated this 2 stars. I did not like this at all. I thought the setup that Powerful gave for this book, like there was nothing in that poured over into Reckless. Also, it was just the same like cat and mouse routine with them, like kind of chasing each other the whole time. Like I felt like the same scene I was watching over and over again. There was no plot, and I just really did not like this book. And I'm gonna read Fearless, but I definitely think the series is a little overhyped. And then I read The Hotel Nantucket by Ellen Hildebrand. I love this book. I rated this 4 stars. This is my first Ellen Hildebrand, and I definitely was having fun in like my grandma book era this summer, like summery reads. The vibes of like Hotel Nantucket like really helped me like romanticize summer, which is not my favorite season at all. And it made me really want to book a trip to Nantucket. And then I read Caught Up by Liz Tomford. I rated this 4.5 stars. I just love this series so much. I love the way that she writes her romances. I just don't love the single dad trope. And then I read Gleam by Raven Kennedy. I rated this 5 stars actually. I really thought that this book made this series so much better in my opinion, and everything that I didn't like from the other ones she fixed, and there was so much character development, So much happened in this book. I was on the edge of my toes the whole time. This really made this series. Like, I was glad that I went through the first one just to get to the third one. And then I read Play Along by Liz Tomford. I rated this 4.5 stars as well. I really loved this book. It was like the baseball player and his athletic trainer, and like he was just so golden retriever, and I love Isaiah. Like, I was obsessed with him as a male lead, but something about it like just wasn't fully a 5-star. Like, it's, I can't really articulate it, but it just couldn't get right up there for me. And then I read Foxglove by Adalyn Grace. I rated this 4 stars. I thought this was a really good follow-up to Belladonna. This was probably my favorite book in the series. We got kind of the dual point of view with, we added another character, which I thought was really interesting, and definitely still had those gothic vibes. I just loved it. And then I read The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. This book is my favorite book I read this whole year. 5 stars, beautifully written. Definitely my favorite part about it was the relationships that, and like the resilience of the women in this book, and how they how they leaned on each other. It's just beautiful. And then I read The Housemaid is Watching by Freida McFadden. I rated this 3 stars, definitely my least favorite of the Housemaid series. I just felt like this book didn't really need to be written, but it was a Freida McFadden book. It was quick, it was fun. And then I read Summer Romance. I rated this 2.75 stars. I just couldn't see the hype that this had during this time. Like, I was expecting to find a new author like Emily Henry, and I just didn't. Like, I was just kind of bored throughout the whole thing. It took me 6 days to read like a 300-page book, which is really slow for me, and I just didn't love it. And everyone was comparing her to Emily Henry, and I'm like, no, in my opinion. And then I read Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I rated this 3 stars. I remember really liking the concept, and I liked the Yale vibes. I liked the secret society. I liked the dark paranormal part of it. I just felt like it was a little dense, and it did not need to be that dense. And then I read In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. I rated this 3 stars. It was a like fun dark academia thriller, but just didn't really stand out to me. I remember thinking the timeline was really like weirdly done, and I just didn't love that. And then I read If We Were Villains by Emma Rio. This is one of my favorite dark academias I've ever read. Love the Shakespeare vibes. I just thought it was phenomenal. And then I read A Dangerous Collaboration by Veronica Speedwell. This one is by far my favorite in the Veronica Speedwell series, and it was just so much fun. The mystery and like the coastal vibes were just immaculate. And then I read The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. I rated this 3 stars. It was just kind of a cozy fantasy. The vibes were there. It was wholesome. It was cute. Didn't live up to like what I was expecting of it. I think I saw the beautiful cover and I was like, this is gonna be so perfect, but maybe that's my fault. And then I read Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. I rated this 4 stars. This is the book that actually kind of got me into the Harry Potter series. Like, I was kind of feeling iffy on books 1 and 2, but this one, I was like, okay, I can see I'm starting to have some fun now. I'm starting to connect a little bit. And then I read Daydream by Hannah Grace. I rated this 4 stars. Definitely my favorite by far in the whole Icebreaker series. I really liked how the main character, like, loved books, loved like cozy, quiet life. Definitely related to that, and I just loved the romance. It was great. Then I read Wisteria by Adalyn Grace. I rated this one 3.5 stars. Definitely fell flat for me at the end there. I really love this series. It just, the last book didn't follow the main character in the first book, and I really wanted to see more of her, and the gothic vibes just weren't the same as they were in the first 2. And then I read The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Laurie Gilmore. 3 stars. It was fun. It was basically a warm cup of coffee Hallmark movie, right what I needed in the fall. Like, just a fun time. And then I read Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo. I rated this 3.5 stars. I am glad I finished the duology for this, but definitely not my favorite by Leigh Bardugo. Again, I just kind of felt like it was really dense, but I liked this one a little bit more because I thought it was interesting. I thought we got a little bit more into like the dark, like sinister part of the secret societies, which I really enjoyed. And then I read The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I rated this 4 stars. This was my annual witchy read in October. I adored this one. This was so much fun, and the romance was great. Like, just the witchy vibes were just so much fun. And then I read The Last Tale, The Flower Bride. I rated this one 3 stars. This was by Roshana Chokshi, and it was dark, gothic, but really didn't stand out to me at all. I felt like the characters weren't developed very well in this book, and I just couldn't connect at all throughout the whole book. And then I read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Rachel Zeman. I rated this 5 stars. It follows these characters from college as they develop video games together throughout their lives, and it just goes into such like deep topics. It's such like, you learn like so much about these characters. I felt so connected to them throughout. Definitely very character driven, but I really liked that. And then I read Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. I rated this one 3 stars actually. This one was not my favorite of the Elsie Silver books, and I think for me personally, I just hate reading books about celebrities. I don't know why, I just hate it. I don't like romances where one is a celebrity. It's just not my thing. And then I read Graveyard Shift by Emma Rio. This was just like her short little novella that she came out with. I rated this 3 stars. It was a novella, so like wasn't that memorable. I wanted a little bit more of like the graveyard part, but I feel like we didn't spend that much time in a graveyard. But maybe that was my expectations, I think, got in the way of me fully loving this book. And then I read Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. I rated this 4.75 stars. I love myself a Greek mythology following a misunderstood female main character. Like, I love when we get like a niche Greek mythology figure, especially when it's a woman, like Circe and Ariadne, and like getting like a little twist of their story, and like it does it for me every time. And then I read The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I did not rate this book. I just was kind of doing it for the vibes. I adore these movies, adore the whole Lord of the Rings universe. Finally wanted to start reading it. It was very different from what I expected from what I've seen in the movies, but it was still a really good time. I love these characters. I loved like learning their lore a little bit deeper, and I just love this world. And then I read We Used to Live Here by Marcus Kuehler, and I rated this book 5 stars. This was like a psychological like horror book, and this was exactly what I want from a horror. I read this so quick, and when the times I wasn't reading it, I was still thinking about this book. Like, so good. And then I read Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. I also rated this book 5 stars. This is the book that really cemented that I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like the Harry Potter series, and like I finally started to really connect to the characters. I felt like the plot of this book was the best out of all the 3 books that I've read, and I finally started like getting a deeper dive into like characters and their motive. Definitely way more action packed too, which I really liked. And also the kids are getting older, so I feel like it's starting to get like easier for me to connect with them. And then I read Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. I rated this 5 stars. This book might be the best Brandon Sanderson book I've ever read. It was lengthy but phenomenal. Like, I finally started like really loving the characters. I finally started to like understand the world a lot better, and I just had so much fun with this. And I just like fell in love with the Stormlight Archives in this book. And the way his mind works like with building the story just like is beyond me. Like, I'm like, how did you come up with it? It's genius. And then I read Spectacular by Stephanie Garber. I rated this 3 stars. As much as I love the Caraval series, like it's one of my all-time favorite series, like Caraval and Once Upon a Broken Heart, I am obsessed with those books. This one was great. The Christmas vibes were immaculate. Like, just the Christmas vibes and just like the fairy tale vibes, 5 stars. Absolutely. But there was kind of one like plot point in this book where I was like, what is this? I think I would do 3.5. I think I'd say 3.5 stars. But like, if you read it, you know what I'm talking about. But like, I just couldn't get over that. I was like icked out. The last book I read in 2024 was My December Darling by Lauren Asher. I rated this 3 stars. It was a fun Christmas novella. Had no really thoughts, did not really end the year off with like a bang or anything. It was just like a fun Christmas novella and got me kind of in the spirit. But definitely recommend if it's around the holidays and you want like a quick romance read. It was a good time. What I did like about this though is that with Christmas books, like Christmas romances, I don't feel like I need a whole book. I never feel like I need a whole book. This one I liked. It was like 200 pages. I got what I needed from the story. I needed the Christmas cheer, and that's what I got, and then I'm out. And so I really appreciated that about this book. I feel like I've been talking for a really long time, but those are all the books that I have read in 2024, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know I have wrap-ups and stuff, but like for those of you who have not seen them, or if you wanted like an overview of everything I read, I just wanted to have it all in one video as a recap. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know if you'd like any more videos, what other kinds of videos you would like from me going into 2025. And thank you guys so much for watching this week's video. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought about them. If you guys have any recs for me for 2025, please let me know in the comments. Always thank you for watching my channel. Thank you for watching this video. If you like my video, please like, comment, and subscribe. I have so many fun ideas for 2025. I'm so excited, and I'm so excited what the new year will bring. I hope you guys have such a fabulous week. I hope you guys had an amazing year of reading in 2024. Thank you guys so much again for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!